It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn, Vincent. Large groups of teenagers have been gathering in downtown Detroit, organized on TikTok and Snapchat. It's part of a national trend that's being called teen takeovers. Most of the kids were just hanging out, but some of these gatherings have turned chaotic. There have been brawls, vandalism, and an attempted robbery on Woodward. On April 11th, a gun was fired, but no one was hurt. Two of the 16-year-olds who organized the first gathering sat next to Mayor Mary Sheffield at a press conference last week. Davion Page said he did it because he was bored. Dinasha Tidwell said the violence that followed was harmful and very unacceptable. Where can Detroit kids go to just be safe and have fun? And what's the responsibility of a city to help grow and develop young people? These are questions for Jerjuan Howard. He's the first director of Detroit's new Office of Youth Affairs. He's also an Army veteran, founder of the Umoja Debate League, and the owner of a new bookstore on Puritan Avenue. Jerjuan, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So we're going to get into your own story later because I think it tells us a lot about what this office could be. But first, we got to discuss the challenges in even making this office work. Okay, so over 200,000 Detroiters are 24 or younger, and many of them are living in poverty. There's a belief that the teen takeovers are happening because kids don't have places to spend time with each other after school is out. What do you make of that perspective?
I think it's true. I think what we've seen with the teen takeovers is clear example of a lack of space for young people to just be themselves, a lack of third spaces. And there is programming that we have in the city, but we have to improve it and make it more accessible.
And by third space, because this is still like a newer term for some folks, we're talking about a space where people can safely gather and they don't have to spend any money. Is that right?
Yeah. Or a ton of money. Maybe some small fee or something like that, but not a ton of money has to be spent. I'm at a third space. You're literally just allowed to just be yourself and be amongst community.
When you think about the city and how many third spaces are available to kids, what do you think of?
I think about parks, rec centers, skating rinks to some extent. But then you kind of get to dig a little bit deeper. The movie theaters that we lack in the city of Detroit, the other just venues just for them. There is a shortage. The arcades, more things like that. It is kind of scarce when it comes to opportunities or things for them to do. But at the same exact time, we are working on some pretty strategic initiatives to give them things to do, and they're actually helping us mold what those systems and those initiatives will look like.
So you're talking about your work then, leading the Office of Youth Affairs. I mean, your office is tasked with this very thing, with engaging with young people, creating spaces for them. How much have you been involved in helping the city and police resolve the issue that we're talking about that stems from not having these third spaces, which is the so-called teen takeovers?
Yeah, so prior to the press conference that you mentioned earlier, we met with the organizers of the teen takeovers.
I know. I see you doing the air quotes because as we discussed before getting on the mic, it just sounds so silly, but it could sound worse. I think about the way TV news may have framed this like 10 or 15 years ago. I feel like they would have said, teen terror.
Yeah, something like that.
But hasn't it been young people themselves who are calling it the teen takeovers?
Yeah, so actually it was interesting when we met with the young organizers of it and we asked them, where'd you get the name from? They said ChatGPT.
Oh, no.
So that's what they said. They got the actual teen takeover name from. But as you mentioned, too, this is a national thing. And actually, we've seen it a lot worse in other cities, like Chicago and things like that, where they're trampling over cars and there's a lot of property damage. Not saying that what we've seen here in Detroit, I don't want to minimize that because there are some issues with it and ways we can organize it better. But in comparison to other cities and the numbers of property damage and things like that, Detroit's teen takeovers, air quotes again, weren't at that level of disruption and disturbance and just overall chaos.
Yeah, and I think that was certainly a relief to many of us. But as we think about what role you're going to have leading the Office of Youth Affairs in helping the city and police resolve this issue, I don't think we could overstate the importance of your perspective as a younger person. I mean, how old are you?
I'm 28.
Okay. You're 28 years old. You're in the room with the mayor. You're in the room with police. What are you saying to them about these teen takeovers? How much of a responsibility do you feel as a younger person who's in like close age proximity to a lot of these younger people? Yeah, you said a lot. A lot of responsibility is what you feel. Go on.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility. And the perspective that I always have is let's understand them first, right? But before we kind of take on whatever the media might be pushing out, let's literally talk to them and see why did this thing happen. And then because the fact of the matter is that young people will be in this city. This is their downtown as well. And if we can figure out ways on why they did it, we can be strategic about organizing them to just have space the right way. And so I always want to understand them and help bring that understanding to a wider audience and a more powerful table. And then solutions like the ones you'll begin to see in a few weeks start to roll out, I think will be successful because we're not planning for them, we're planning with them in that aspect.
Give me an example of one of those solutions that you're going to roll out that you feel really holds a lot of promise.
So what we've seen with the teen takeovers were young people just organizing themselves. They put it out. They had their channels of communication, whether that was TikTok or whatever platform they used. And then they just showed up. But after that, the planning was just nothing. It was just to walk around. If we're able to organize them, let's say at Hart Plaza, and have a DJ and have food trucks and have other things set up in place for them, it is an organized space where we know where everyone is at. We can organize ride sharing points for pickup so parents can be there before curfew hits. It's a more organized effort in that aspect. So I hinted at it a little bit. We're still kind of working that part out, but you will see some activations that we pretty much begin to do in the neighborhoods, as well as we're trying to do some downtown as well, where they already are planning to be at.
You said something earlier that I think is striking, and that is that it's young people's downtown too. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, for you growing up, did you feel like Detroit's downtown was for you?
I mean, we would go to Hart Plaza. That was a big thing. We would go to Belle Isle. We didn't necessarily feel, left out of downtown per se growing up. But I don't know if that's the same experience that young people today have as we talk to them about the many, many changes that they're seeing with their city. I pay attention to language. And when they say downtown, they don't say my downtown or our downtown. They say we have to go downtown or I want them to have more ownership of it, because when you have ownership of something, from there comes pride. And from pride comes a certain behavior around this thing. There's no way I'm going to tear stuff up if I'm prideful about it, if I feel like I have some type of stake in it. So we have to also implement that into our young people's minds to be prideful about what we have in this city, because it does belong to them too.
What does that look like, instilling that kind of pride and ownership?
Yep.
What are the conversations, or what are you encouraging young people to, like, how are you encouraging them, I guess I should say, to interact with their environment?
Yep. So we bring them in. We bring them right in. So when planning studies will happen now and in the future, youth voice will be included. So
meaning urban planning studies,
absolutely,
like how the future of Detroit is going to look.
Yes. In terms of the future, because they're going to inherit it. And again, if they can provide feedback and solutions early on before something is built, that's their minds. That's their input. That's their energy that's getting put into this project as well. And so there's ownership just from the beginning, because we're not bringing them in at the back end and say, hey, we built this thing for you. But no, they're included early on in the process, and that's ownership. That is, they're a literal stakeholder at that point. Mm.
It feels like it's more than that too, though. It's civic engagement.
Absolutely.
it's showing kids that when they do have that voice, when they do have that ownership, when they do participate, that change can be made on a very local level and that they can have a strong hand in that.
Absolutely. You know, the quote says those who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And with that being the case, then it's young people. They have solutions. They're creative. They're innovative. It's up to us as a city, and me in particular as Director of Youth Affairs, to be able to pull that out and implement that in a positive way that impacts Detroit now and in the future.
I mean, you and I are talking right now, Jerjuan, about this very hopeful future. And certainly it is one that I want to buy into as an idealistic person. But we also have to look at some of the pushback right now. I mean, the night after the mayor's press conference with the teen organizers, there was a second gathering downtown. A man was nearly robbed on Woodward and a gun was fired. Some business owners have said the city is rewarding bad behavior by talking to young people and not simply punishing them for the chaos that they've created. I'm wondering, what do you say to those folks? And to a listener who, let's say they hear youth engagement and they think that the city's being soft.
So we had a meeting with some of the business owners, this was last week, to talk about this exact thing. And the mayor reassured them that, you know, it's steps to this. There's prevention, there's intervention, and then there's enforcement. And that is the process that we plan to take. We're going to try to prevent this from happening through the programs, through giving them alternatives and things to do like that. There's going to be intervention, right? Like once they're down there, we're going to try to, you know, figure things out and disperse them out of the crowds and things of that sort. But the mayor made that very clear that this is a city, right? Like we must have law and order, and there is enforcement when rules are broken. So curfews have been enacted. Chief Bettison spoke to that very, very clearly in the most recent press conference. So I don't think that the city is, or what we're doing here is like rewarding, you know, that behavior, but it's more so to have an understanding of it, to really produce a tangible long-term solution, because they will. Again, we see in the other cities, like we've seen it in other cities when they try to just only use the enforcement method, it doesn't, like maybe for a night or two, you might see a quiet downtown. But again, they still need somewhere else to go the next week. And so we must also add the prevention intervention piece into it. But I've not seen it as, you know, a lack of enforcement.
Sure. I mean, the other side of the coin then, of course, you're going to have the folks that say, hey, research has found that curfews don't actually reduce crime and they're enforced disproportionately against Black kids.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile then the engagement work with the enforcement half?
So, wait, I asked that question again for me?
Yeah, I mean, we're flipping the coin now. So you're making the argument for why we need to have both.
Yeah.
But of course, there's research and there's advocates who are going to say curfews are not the right way to go, that they don't actually reduce crime, that they're enforced, and Black kids are the ones who are hit hardest by curfews. So now I'm asking you to, you know, just humor me here in looking at the other side of things when it comes to people who are saying the engagement work and the enforcement can't exist together or shouldn't, that there are problems with the enforcement as it is.
I think I believe it has to be both, though. Like, I genuinely believe that it has to be both. You must engage them and, you know, educate them on, here are the do's and don'ts. Here are some alternatives. Here are some ways. I believe that young people are smart enough to do a risk assessment. If you give them two options, they're going to choose the better option. If one option leads to, you know, your parents have to pay this $500 fine, you getting in trouble, or you can go to this rec center and have fun and, you know, have the time of your life, they're going to take that better option if they know it is an option. And then for those who decide to take the alternative, the bad option, then there has to be enforcement for that. But I think it has to be both. I truly, I don't know how to differentiate, you know, that.
Yeah,
so I hope I'm answering your question in that aspect, though.
You see these two things working together.
They have to.
Engagement and enforcement.
I really believe they have to, yeah.
you just mentioned something too that I wonder your thoughts on. You have trust in young people. You believe that they can make some good decisions, that they can understand, how their actions can have an impact. Do we not trust young people enough?
No, we don't.
Say more.
No, we don't. We don't. We don't. It's evident in the way that we produce solutions for them and not with them. Oftentimes, again, a thing is produced for a young person. They're not at the table. We don't trust their minds. We don't trust their creativity or innovation. And we don't trust that they care about this city just as much as we do. I've found that young people are just as prideful about Detroit as anyone I've ever met. And when you're prideful about something, you want it to be better. They don't want their city to be crazy. That's not the case. That's like an entire negative connotation around young people that I just don't believe is true, not from my experience. Again, prior to this role, I started Umoja Debate League, where hundreds of young people volunteer. They don't have to do this. They don't get paid to. They're talking about issues in their city, and they're producing solutions for their city in middle school and high school. So my perspective, I've seen young people use their gifts and their talents to better their environment. And I am very optimistic that given the right platform, they'll continue to do that.
It sounds like it's not only given the right platform, though, it's about instilling some trust in them. Saying, like, I trust you, I believe in you to do this, and not perhaps being skeptical or distrustful.
Yeah. And again, I'm still realistic, right? Again, I'm not, too much in La La Land where I think everything is good. I understand that there will be some situation where young people don't do the right thing that they should. But the overwhelming majority of our young people, I trust in them. I believe in them. And I believe that they'll push this city forward when we give them the right access and platform to do so.
We're going to take a break in a minute, but before we do that, this has me wondering, I mean, you're engaging with young folks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What are you hearing from them are some of their biggest concerns and their desires?
A couple of things. Their concerns are pretty much similar to what adults are saying in terms of the city of Detroit. They need access. They might say blighted buildings, things of that sort, quality of life things. But their desires, we have students that want to become developers. We have students that want to become architects. We have students that want to become the mayor. It's a wide range of where their imagination, where their desires go.
I want to think about that too when we come back, what it means to grow up around a lot of blight. I realize that was an experience for you as well. It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. My guest is Jerjuan Howard. He's the director of Detroit's Office of Youth Affairs. He's also led several initiatives in the city, including a local debate team, and he's opening a new bookstore. We're discussing the recent problems that teens both from in and outside of Detroit have created downtown and how a new city office is trying to give kids a positive direction. More on that next here on the Metro. Stay with us. It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. I've been talking with Jerjuan Howard. He's the director of Detroit's Office of Youth Affairs. He's also led a lot of initiatives in the city, including a local debate team, and he's opening a new bookstore. He's only 28 years old, and so he's also a really good person to talk about what young people are looking for right now, what's missing in their lives, and how to create a Detroit that is more for them. So we've been discussing the recent problems that teens, both from in and outside of Detroit, I should mention that too, that the so-called teen takeovers that we've been discussing, it is not just Detroit young people. These are young people from other parts of the area who are coming into the city because the downtown is exciting.
Yeah.
It is alluring to kids. But of course, we're focusing more on what Detroit can do because you are heading this new Detroit office.
Yes.
Why did you take on this position as the director of the Office of Youth Affairs?
So when the mayor and I initially discussed this entire position, it was about including youth voice into how the city functions in the present and in the future. In my work previously, I had been able to some degree elevate youth voice with my debate team in the debate league. In the past, we had our students debating actual city council ordinances. And so middle schoolers were fully engaged in what city council was talking about, whether that was the animal keeping ordinance or the food grading ordinance. And the mayor would, at the time she was council president, she would come watch our debate tournaments just to hear young people articulate themselves. And
can we stay on this for a moment, because this is pretty brilliant. I mean, this is not only about helping kids to find a voice through debate, but you were also marrying civic engagement
Absolutely.
there. You were having them learn about these really in the weeds kinds of ordinances and having them distill that into something interesting that they could debate. Please go on
absolutely.
about that.
And we use a term in the organization called disguised learning. So yes, children love to argue. I don't think that's a secret.
Disguised learning. We're keeping it concealed. You don't know that you're learning right now because you're having a good time.
Yeah, because you're debating and you're doing research, but ultimately you're learning how the process works. In order to be a good debater, you must be a good researcher. You must understand the affirmative side and the negative side, you know, what this ordinance means and all those things. So as a result, you're learning about how the city works. And we give you this through a debate. And you debate against another school, and you're already passionate to beat this other school, so you're taking this research 10 times more serious. That is like the whole entire function of the debate league. So the mayor at the time, she was council president, would come in and view those, and I think she began to understand my mind a little bit more in terms of how I wanted to engage youth and, you know, pour into them. And from there, we talked about the position, and I wanted to do that at a city level, and she was, of course, she was wanted to do that as well. And so that's how the position kind of came about.
Are you telling me that you pitched this essentially to now Mayor Mary Sheffield when she was city council president, and you stayed on her radar until this office launched and she said she tapped you for it? Yeah,
so I wouldn't say I necessarily pitched it. We would have conversations about the debate topics and things of that sort. And again, I think she's understood my mind a little bit more. And then when she was on the campaign, we had some conversations about what youth in the city would look like if she was to become mayor. And some of the things we discussed are some of the things that we actually are implementing now once we made the decision to bring me on board and everything.
So a lot of seeds were being planted for a while that led to the growth of this office.
Yeah.
And I want to think about what led to your growth in terms of being really politically involved, because there was something in particular that really was a catalyst for you. And it was the shooting of Trayvon Martin, a black 17-year-old. That was in 2012. He was shot and killed in Florida by a self-appointed neighborhood watch coordinator named George Zimmerman, who was later acquitted. How exactly did that moment change you?
So I was a freshman in high school at Renaissance High School, and just watching that whole thing I didn't know much about the law or anything like that, but it was just mind-boggling to me that this just happened. And in my young mind, I want to change the system. And that's kind of where I kind of got involved. I wanted to become a lawyer. It was at that point I took debate class my 10th grade year, and I was pretty good at debate. And that's when I made the decision I'm going to be a lawyer to try to help my people in the justice system. Later on down the line, like those plans shifted gears once I started Umoja Debate League. And hopefully, you know, God willing, I'm producing hundreds of lawyers through this initiative. But that was like the spark for me that kind of got me going to want to be more involved.
When you're young and you witness such a level of injustice like that, like the killing, I mean, again, of Trayvon Martin, I want to say his name again. When you witness that injustice, there are a lot of young people who are going to say, I want to blow up the system. I don't want to work within it to change things. Why did you see the path for you as being one working in the system as opposed to trying to blow it up?
Well, it was just what I knew at the time. I didn't know the system as well as I think I know the system now. So it's the justice system that acquitted him. All right, this is the justice system I'm going to change. But over time, I mean, I think now I believe it has to be both, and it has to be work within the system, but also community organizers and activists working outside the system too. It has to be a nice marriage between the two to produce real solutions and real change. But at that moment, it was just strictly based on what I knew.
Well, I mean, you are a student of Malcolm X, and that is absolutely the route that he was advocating for, right?
Yeah.
It was about being subversive. It was about being in the system, but also blowing it up at the same time. No?
No, I think Malcolm X believed just more in just, like build your own thing. Like you don't have to interact with the system, don't interact with it. Build your own thing. And I believe there is some power and autonomy in building your own businesses and just operating outside of whatever. But again, I still believe at this point that it's a both and. You must have power to just stand on your own and some level of autonomy in businesses and things of that sort. But you also must, we still live within the system. So you must be able to engage with it in a way that makes sense for you and your community.
When you think about that system, I'm wondering for you growing up, how you squared the so-called system. And I'm when I say system now, I'm thinking more broadly. I'm not just thinking about the justice system. I'm thinking about all the systems that hold things together, but also these are the systems that deepen racial inequality and deepen income inequality. Specifically, I'm thinking about you growing up in a neighborhood that was surrounded by disinvestment. This is something that you told the Detroit Free Press. When did you begin to understand that the area you lived in had been forgotten?
Really, I mean, I would kind of say around high school as well. And by forgotten, I think it's a two-part question as well, a two-part answer. The community never forgot it. Although it was divestment in terms of buildings and structures and things of that sort, the community was still strong. I had great neighbors. My school that was right down the street was amazing. The teachers cared, the principal cared. The football park that we played at, there was a community there. Now the divestment came in terms of the commercial corridor and things of that sort. And I began to, I guess flip the switch when I got into high school to understand, like, oh, wow, this is a lot different than Royal Oak or wherever else, whatever else city you want to name. But high school was when I began to understand that and connect the dots.
How did you hold those two contrasts of understanding there's a lot of blight in my community. There are a lot of dilapidated homes, and yet I know my neighbors care. I know that the people around me care. I know that the folks at my school care. Like, what level of awareness or understanding, what did that sort of bring to mind for you? What crystallized for you in understanding both of those, holding both of those things at once?
Just understanding the country a little bit better and understand the history of the country, made it more real for me, I guess. But also it's a feeling. You can tell when somebody cares for you. You can tell when someone wants you to be in a better position. And that's what I felt from my community, like the whatever circle, radius, or whatever we kind of had. I felt it. But then as I understood the country a little bit more, there have always been these, crazy parallels of the have and the have-nots. And the more I understood that, the more I was able to make sense of what I was in the midst of.
What does it feel like for you today to see so much of the blight now gone from the city? What kinds of feelings do you have? Are they complex feelings? Because it's not that all of the blight was bad necessarily. So I wonder what it's like for you to walk through certain neighborhoods and streets and see those empty spaces now.
Mm-hmm. I never felt, again, I always felt that people in the city of Detroit were prideful, right? They had, like, we take pride in our neighborhoods. And I always say Detroit really never left. Some people say Detroit came back, but like Detroit never left. The people who have been here for decades and put investment into their homes, their neighborhoods, their blocks, those people are still here. They never went anywhere. And so, like, as I see certain areas begin to be cleaned up, I'm very, very proud that it's happening. And I know that those who have stayed here and those even who have moved here too have played a role in it. So, I mean, it's a community. I'm happy about it.
I'm wondering, as a kid, if you could have convinced the federal and state government, as well as the city, to invest in more activities and safe public spaces for you and your peers, what kinds of things would that have been?
That's a good one.
Like, what would have helped you the most?
So I have to answer this just from my perspective. I think everything in my life happened, the way it was supposed to some degree. Whether that was the certain opportunities that I got or the ones that I didn't have, it's molded me to who I am. Now, I can answer that question from like a more right now perspective for Detroit youth. We need things.
You're saying, though, that you needed the struggles. You needed.
Not
needed. That's a strong word.
Yeah. I want to be careful with saying I needed them. But I believe that I had an upbringing that prepared me for what I'm in the midst of right now.
It shaped you into the person that you are in, and you wouldn't trade that because you like the person that you've become.
Yeah. But moving forward, though, we must do a better job at creating opportunities for Detroit youth that prepare them for the future. I know so many brilliant young people in the neighborhoods who might be building a little go-kart in the backyard, like with scraps out of a lawnmower motor and things of that sort. But they're really brilliant, and if they had a coding class that was in their neighborhood, they could probably learn how to do some really cool stuff. Or if they had a 3D printer, or if they had access to drones and things of that sort. So where the future of this world is going, more opportunities that mold young people and get their interest early on is what we need, in my opinion.
Jerjuan Howard, director of Detroit's first Office of Youth Affairs. Thank you so much for joining me on the Metro today.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
It's the Metro on WDET. I'm Robyn Vincent. Coming up, Michigan Democrats nominated Washtenaw County Prosecutor Ellie Savitt as their candidate for State Attorney General. We'll hear why he wants to be Michigan's top lawyer. That's next here on the Metro. Stay with us.